Hello, rock stars and other fellow viewers. I am Rocky, and today I wanted to talk about something that's a little bit relevant in my life. And sorry for the mess in the background. I'm currently cleaning my room up. But I wanted to talk about chaos. Now, what exactly do I mean by chaos, and what context am I using it in? Well, I'm using it in the context of life. I was talking to my therapist a while ago, and he was talking to me like life sometimes can bring you the best things that you will ever have, right? Sometimes life will give you something that you've been waiting for a long time. But unfortunately, chaos comes in, and sometimes it'll take it from you, or it'll make things so super complicated, or it'll make just life complicated, and in times like these, I feel like it is important to recognize the fact that chaos is bound to happen. It is not something that's very easily obviated. It is not something that you can control, and a lot of people, that's where it destroys them. Like for me right now, in some parts of my life, there are a lot of things that I wish I could have controlled and seen coming before they happened. But part of chaos is also accepting the fact that yes, it is there, and it is the biggest bitch in the world, but how you handle it and how you navigate around it, traverse it, and overcome it will ultimately define you as a person, and it will make you stronger. Yes, it does suck whenever it does happen. It does. It very much does, and I am someone who understands that to the bone. But when it really comes down to it, it's more of like, when it really comes down to it, it's a learning lesson, and it's a lesson to take in, and ponder on it, and sometimes some things hurt too much to ponder on, and if you want to use like little minor distractions before you really dive right into it, dive right into like the chaos that's happening in your life, that's fine, but avoiding it for too long is also not a good thing, and as somebody who has dealt with a lot of chaos in his life, it really does eventually at some point work itself out. Sometimes it may get easier, sometimes it may get harder, but it only gets harder before it gets easier. And I think it's important to understand that, like, when it comes to mental health, you have to talk about these things. You can't just keep it to yourself and expect everything to still be okay, or for you to turn out without any psychological damage, because the fucked up part of our current society right now is that a lot of people keep everything to themselves. They don't acknowledge the fact that like they are human, going through life, and that they, it doesn't hurt to talk about things. You're never too manly to talk about something. You're never too like, oh, I'm too tough to, be wasting my time talking about things. Like, that's never the case. It's genuinely never the case. And and like I said, chaos can win, and it hurts when it does. But how you learn from it and how you grow from it is really what defines the trajectory of your life. And yes, some things are so unbearably complicated that it feels like you just won't be able to figure it out. It doesn't feel like you'll be able to ride the storm out. It doesn't feel like you'll be able to, have better times come your way. And I'm here to tell you that's bullshit. I'm here to tell you that like that's not the case. Like, life does have a way of shining its light towards you. You just have to find it. And sometimes you have to. Life is not just going to give it to you. Sometimes you have to explore, expand, and find it. And that's why I'm doing what I'm doing right now. And that's why I'm like trying to, develop new hobbies, and this being one of them. I'm enjoying this one. I really am. I'm enjoying the hell out of it. I'm having so much fun doing it, but I'm also doing it with the exception and knowing that like sometimes I am going to be sad, whenever I do some of these things, and it's okay for me to take a break if I really can't do it, and I'm here to tell everybody it is okay to take a break. It's okay to have a distraction for a little bit, not forever, but for a little bit, to get your brain, under control, to get your thoughts under control, to get yourself under control, because losing yourself is so easy to do these days. It is so easy, and as you get older, it gets more easier, and for me, I'm trying to find myself again. You know, for me, I'm trying to figure out like what I want to do, you know, how I want to move forward with my life, how I want to just go about my day-to-day life and tackling it little by little, you know, and I'm doing it a day at a time. Because as a kid, I don't feel like I was given much of a chance to, you know, take things day at a time. And now that I'm older, I'm like, I really need to do this, you know? And I feel like a lot of people could hear that. A lot of people need to hear that, you know? And whether this reaches to people on a massive scale, or whether this reaches to people on a minor scale, whether this picks up later down the road, you know, I just want to put my message out there. Because for me, this is also a good way for me to also talk about my problems and make them easier for myself, you know, even if I'm not talking about them directly. You know, it's the feeling of trying to help people while I'm also helping myself, you know. And so yeah, like I said, man, chaos can win in life, and that is a tough lesson to learn. But another thing to understand is that you are strong enough to make it through, and that there is always a light at the end of every tunnel, all the time. And sometimes you have to find it for yourself. Sometimes you have to put yourself out there. Sometimes you have to fight yourself to find it. And that means exploring, just explore. You know, there's nothing in life that's realistically holding you back from exploring anything. You know, explore your town, explore the fucking downtown, you know, get your car, drive somewhere new, you know, or find a new hobby, find something that you've always wanted to do and that you've stopped yourself from doing, and you're like, and ask yourself, what's really stopping me? And a lot of times that'll help you change your mind. Okay? So I'm going to conclude the video here. Thank you all for listening. Thank you all for tuning in if y'all did. And as always, rock stars and other fellow viewers, I hope you all have a good morning, good evening, and a good night. And I will be seeing y'all in future videos. Bye-bye.